The Lighthouse Keeper's Lantern. The lighthouse at Dead Man's Bluff stood like a rotting tooth on the jagged edge of the Gulf Coast, its white paint long stripped away by salt and wind, its lantern cold and cracked. Nobody had tended it for 40 years, not since Keeper Elias Ward vanished one summer night and left the beacon to rot. Since then, fishermen gave the bluff a wide berth, and locals said you could still see a pale light flicker in the fog, though no oil had burned in the lantern since Nixon was in office. June Garrow didn't believe in ghost stories. She came to Dead Man's Bluff in early fall, hired by the Historical Preservation Society to document the old structure before it was demolished. She arrived with a camera, a drone, a GPS, and a stubborn refusal to be unnerved by creaking floorboards or tales told in bars. Her supervisor warned her about the locals, about their tales of strange lights and voices calling from the surf, but she chalked it up to small-town color. Besides, June had her own ghosts, and none of them lived in lighthouses. The climb up the bluff was treacherous, ankle-deep sand shifting beneath wild grass, gulls screeching overhead like angry spirits. The lighthouse itself was a 3-story tower with iron spiral stairs and the heavy stink of mildew and rust. But it was the keeper's quarters below that made her pause. The door creaked open before she touched it, as if welcoming her in. Inside, the air felt strangely warm. Dust motes danced in shafts of dim sunlight. The walls bore deep scratches, claw-like, and a single boot, ancient, leather-cracked, sat in the center of the room as if someone had just stepped out of it. On the table lay a yellowed logbook. June flipped it open. The final entry read, August 19th, storm rising. Light out, but someone is still knocking. She closed the book. A storm was rising again, the pressure thick enough to taste. The waves below began to pound against the rocks harder, angrier. She unpacked her camera and began recording. That night, she stayed at the old ranger cabin a mile inland, nestled in moss-draped oaks and kudzu. It had no TV, no internet, only the sound of cicadas and the rising wind. At 3:12 a.m., June woke to the sound of footsteps outside. Slow, deliberate, crunching along the gravel path. She rose, heart pounding, and went to the window. No one was there. But beyond the trees, far off on the bluff, a single light blinked once, then again. A lighthouse beacon. She blinked, rubbed her eyes. It was gone. The next morning, she returned to the bluff. Her drone battery had drained overnight despite being fully charged. The logbook was gone. In its place was a rusted lantern that hadn't been there the day before. It stank of seawater and oil. She picked it up. The glass was cracked, but inside the wick was freshly blackened, as though recently burned. June frowned. Someone was messing with her. Locals, maybe, or another preservation worker playing a prank. She decided to hike back down and file a report. But just as she reached the edge of the bluff, her ears filled with a low hum, a vibration that trembled in her ribs. The lantern in her hand flickered. The light inside ignited for a moment, glowing dim orange. Then the wind rose and she heard it. A whisper. Keeper Ward. She dropped the lantern. It hit the stones but didn't break. The whisper came again, clearer now, slipping past the wind like a breath against her ear. He let them in. June left the bluff without looking back. That night, thunder rolled across the sky. Rain lashed the ranger cabin windows. At midnight, she heard it again. The footsteps, closer now. This time, they stopped at the front porch. She waited, paralyzed, ears straining. Knock. Once, twice, 3 times. Then silence. She crept to the door and opened it. No one was there, but on the porch sat the rusted lantern. She hadn't brought it with her. Its flame sputtered to life as she stared, casting long shadows behind her. She picked it up, heart thudding in her throat, and whispered, "Who's doing this?" The lantern's flame flared. Then came the voice, wet and cold. "You are the keeper now." June dropped the lantern again. This time it didn't fall. It hovered, suspended in air like a hooked fish. A gust of salt wind blasted her face, and in its howl she heard the screams of men, the groan of wood splintering, the thunder of waves crashing against the rocks. Then silence. The lantern fell. June spent the rest of the night clutching a knife in the dark. The next day she climbed the bluff one last time. The storm had passed, but the sea was still restless, waves gnawing at the base of the cliff like a dog with a bone. She found the lighthouse door wide open. Inside, the iron staircase was slick with seawater. At the top, in the lantern room, the broken lens had been repaired, but there was no glass on the floor. The logbook had returned to the desk below, open to a new page. September 14th, storm rising. The keeper is here. The handwriting was not hers, but it was fresh ink, and beneath it a signature, E. Ward. She stared at it for a long time. She didn't remember writing it, but the pen rested beside the page, uncapped. Her hands smelled of ink and oil. She looked up and caught her reflection in the cracked lantern glass. Except it wasn't her face. It was a man's, gaunt, salt-burned, eyes hollow as shipwrecked timbers. Elias Ward. She turned and fled, but the staircase spiraled on forever, like a nautilus shell. Down and down and down. Each landing took her to the same room, the keeper's quarters, with the logbook and the boot and the cold, flickering lantern. She screamed, and the sound was swallowed by the sea. 3 days later, a search party found the ranger cabin abandoned. June's car was still there, her laptop open, her drone dead. No sign of her on the bluff. But sometimes, when the fog rolls in, heavy, and the gulls circle overhead in tight, uneasy spirals, fishermen swear they see the lantern glow once more atop Dead Man's Bluff. A single orange light in the tower. They say the new keeper never leaves her post, that she writes in the logbook every stormy night, that she whispers to the wind calling for help, or maybe for someone else to take her place. The lighthouse at Dead Man's Bluff isn't on any map anymore. But if you follow the cries of the gulls and the sound of distant knocking, you might find it. And if you do, don't answer the door.